What's happening, everyone? Dan here at Tech Marketer with another weekly newsletter for you here. As I mentioned last week, this week I wanted to take a look at looking at manually creating late pay tickets and how to automate that process as much as possible for you. So again, previously I've shown you how to do this and automate it with Adapt using some webhooks and some really cool Zapier features and get that ticket manually created inside of AgencyZoom for you. But if you're not using Adapt, or if they don't have the carriers, or you can't use them, or whatever, you can still manually start that process and take advantage of all of the automations that we build after the fact. So before you set this up, there's a few things that you're going to need to do first. Obviously, create a late pay or a notice of cancellation pipeline. You're going to need to create the correct service ticket categories, right? So just cancel, non-pay, cancel, whatever that looks like for you. And then there's also two custom fields that you're going to need to create, and that is going to be late pay dollar amount and late pay due date. And I just, abbreviate with the dollar sign and then late pay due date here. Now, when you create those fields, just make them numbers. They don't need to be dates. They don't need to be anything like that. Don't worry about putting the dollar sign in here. We're going to do that in the automation. So if you are doing this manually, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to update these fields. If you're pulling the report from your carrier, you're going to go in here, you see, okay, this is how much I owe. Let's go ahead and change this just for the sake of appearances. And then we'll make this to, actually, we'll make it 3/1. 3/1/2025. Okay, so we're going to save that. Now, after I update those fields, I want to create a service request for this person. So create a service request. I'm just going to say late pay cancel. That's perfectly fine. Go ahead and associate the policy to it here. That is one advantage if you're doing this manually that you can do. So associate that policy, put it in the correct pipeline, late pay, and then we're going to put it in canceling. So that's the other thing here, how I set this up. I'll show you in just a second. So put it in canceling, category, non-pay, priority, medium, that's fine. This is a weird required one here. And then we'll put that guy in there. Okay, so there's two different ways that you can do this. So one, I'm going to leave this due date blank, right? And I'm just going to create this ticket and I'm going to use the custom fields that we created. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now you can see the automation that comes up, right? And you can see the custom fields that we just updated being sent out to the client so they know exactly how much they owe, they know when it's due, and they know what policy it is that's about to cancel, right? So they have all of that in here. So, hey, pay your bill, right? Don't actually send that. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can see here we've got a bunch of automated emails that go out. I would also send text messages. I can't inside my test account here because I don't have a phone associated with it. And then I do set up one call so that way you can at least say if it does cancel that you tried 3 different ways to get a hold of them and you couldn't get a hold of them, right? It's just a CYA type of thing. So here's your email. Next email, it's going to go out, same thing. Your payment's due by this date. Make the payment. Here's our office phone number. Give us a call. Again, same thing, blah, blah, blah. Call, and then you can put in the task here how much they owe, when it's due. And then the last one saying, hey, if we don't get it, it's going to cancel. Don't let that happen. Now, inside of this, I also have a shot clock that's going to move this, and really we can make that less than 16 days, but we have a shot clock here that after roughly 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, whatever that looks like, it's typically about all the time you're going to get from your carrier to get this payment in before it cancels. Shot clocks this over into canceled, right? So I've got canceling, payment made, canceled, reinstating, and obviously completed. So it's going to kick it over into canceled. Now, if you are an agent that is lucky enough to live in an area where reinstatement is still possible after a cancellation for non-pay, first of all, congratulations. But second of all, you can automate some of this as well too. So some of these emails that are going out are not going overkill. It's already canceled. They're probably a repeat offender anyway if they're in your office getting this type of stuff. So it's just, hey, nickname. And side note, always use nickname if you can, because if they don't have a nickname, it'll revert back to first name. But for me, for example, mine would be Dan instead of Daniel. If you call me Daniel, we're not going to be friends. So it'll always call me Dan. Side note there. Again, just saying, hey, act immediately. You can avoid a gap in coverage if you make this possible, or if you make this payment, it may be possible. A few emails there. And then once that last email is sent, just a service request saying, or a to-do, hey, if you're getting this reminder, they never made their payment, complete the service request, their policy canceled, right? Be done with them, right? So those are kind of the 2 main stages inside of this pipeline. And that's where most of the automation is going to be. Now, What happens if they reach out to you and say that they made a payment, or they call you and they make a payment? Well, don't complete that request just yet. Go ahead and move that. There's not going to be anything here except for maybe some reminders to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and put it into the pipeline here. Some reminders that just say, hey, check if this payment posted, right? Once it's posted and the cancellation has been rescinded, slide that baby over to completed and be done with it. If it's canceled and they make a payment and you are able to reinstate it, or you're trying to reinstate it, again, slide this over into reinstating. Again, just a couple task reminders to reach out to the carrier to see if it happened, see if that cancel rescind comes back, if a reinstatement notice gets issued, whatever, and then move it over into completed. And that's it, right? That's how you can manually do this. Now, I said at the very beginning, I was going to leave that due date blank. There's two different ways that you can do this if you're automating it manually. Right. First one is when you're creating your service automations, you can come in here and say, days from it being added into this pipeline. You can also create the automations to go the other way and say, instead of after entering the stage, prior to the due date. And so you can do this 15 days prior, 10 days prior, 5 days prior, and then 1 day prior, you can actually say, hey, if you don't make a payment by tomorrow, your policy is going to cancel, right? That's kind of the advantage of doing it that way. But different strokes, different folks. There's two different ways that you can do this in here. I'm a fan of both of them for the sake of ease. And since I typically automate this, I had this going into days from instead of prior to the due date. But I do really, really like the prior to due date as well. I think it gives you a little bit more customization because right from the beginning, you can reference the due date inside of the automation. Same with the code, but there's already a due date on there too. So, but you can say in 10 days, in 5 days, whatever. But yes, that is how I would do a manual notice of cancellation inside of AgencyZoom. Right, set up the pipeline, make sure you've got the correct service request types in there, make sure you've got the custom fields in there, and then go to town, right? You can see this entire video took me 7 minutes. It took me 30 seconds to create that service request manually, and then the automation was going to take care of the rest of it, right? So you don't have that CSR or whoever chasing these people for non-pays when at the end of the day, it's not going to be worth it anyway, right? You're going to pay your CSR how many hours a week to go and chase these people. If you get one of them to make a payment for that, $190 something, what are you making, $19 off of that? That's not even enough to pay 1 hour for your service person. So automate this process, make it actually profitable. You don't have to worry about chasing these people, especially since they're most likely going to be repeat offenders anyway. Let the automation take care of it for you. All right, hope that was a helpful one for you, and I will be back next week with another newsletter. Take care, guys.